right. Hello, everybody. I have a very special treat today. I am here with Natasha Kealoha, who is an astrologer and a cosmic navigator. We're going to hear from her in a minute what that means. It's a very exciting and beautiful way of identifying. And yeah, so many layers we're going to get into around what that is. So just so all of you have context. So Natasha is a friend of Keone Hanalei. And I had reached out to Keone after doing some research into galactic parts of the cosmos, and I came across, this Hawaiian name that was really caught my attention. And I emailed Keone and said, "Hey, are you familiar with XYZ phenomenon with this Hawaiian name?" And he said, "Yes, I am, but I'm not the person to really talk to. The person to talk to is Natasha." And so I reached out to Natasha, and last week we got on a call that I thought would last about an hour, and it turned out to be 2.5 hours. It was such a beautiful conversation. So what we're going to be focusing on in this video today is Natasha's approach to astrology, which of course includes the astrology that most of us are familiar with, but then also includes, and I'll let you put this in your own words, your attention also to your own Samoan background and lineage, and your connection to the stars and to the cosmos in general from this perspective of your Samoan history, the incorporating some of the Hawaiian tradition as well, right? And this whole relationship to the cosmos as part of the living sky that helps us to navigate literally, and then also in our own lives personally. And there's so many things there. And then we're gonna segue from you hearing from you what that actually all entails to talking about the Mercury retrograde that is coming up. And then we're actually already in the beginning of, because we're already in the retrograde shadow section of the sky, where Mercury is already taking its first pass through the part of the sky where it's then going to go retrograde soon. So, and we're going to weave in, Natasha's going to share with us some really beautiful insights from, again, these traditions, and that will inform our way of relating to this Mercury retrograde in some ways that already in our conversation last week totally put me in awe and opened things up in such a beautiful way. So thank you, Natasha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, thank you so much for that. The introduction as well. Yeah, I'm really happy and excited, and like I said, a little bit nervous because I'll get a little bit nervous before I get on calls. But yeah, I'm just so stoked to be here with you today. Yeah.
Such an honor and such a treat. I know everybody's gonna love this conversation. So
Yes.
yeah, so let me read your official bio. Just so people can hear it. And I'm going to put your links with this video so everybody can connect with you as well. So Cosmic Navigator, Natasha Kealoha, offers personal sessions that weave together traditional astrology with contemporary astronomical placements. Her birth chart readings offer insight and support to those seeking to open their own unique connection to the cosmos while deepening their connection within. Yes. Yeah. So yes. Explain to us, what does it mean that you are a cosmic navigator?
Yes. So cosmic navigator is it's a title that came to me through a deeply personal experience. It was actually through a community mentorship that Keone facilitated at the end of last year that really deepens your relationship with yourself. And so through that process, I started to deepen in with my own connection and my own Samoan heritage. So just to clarify, my last name is Kealoha. Kealoha is Hawaiian. That is my married name. So my husband is part Hawaiian, born and raised in Hawaii. But I am not personally Hawaiian, although I did live in Hawaii for 6 years. And my my father, who is full Samoan, and his family actually lives on Oahu. So I do have family also in the Hawaiian Islands. But I am, so coming back to the Polynesian part, so I am half Samoan. And I was not, I didn't get raised, I wasn't raised in the culture. And so part of me reconnecting with my own roots and what it means to be Samoan and like what that even looks like in my life. There was this really interesting connection. I noticed that astrology kind of lends its hand beautifully to how indigenous cultures in the Pacific used stars to navigate the open ocean. And so that was a really big kind of just eye-opening experience, like reading books, listening to podcasts and things, deepening my own understanding of how ancient Polynesians, also Micronesians and Melanesians, so these are like the three main groups of the Pacific Islands, all were able to navigate the open ocean in ancient times without the use of Western instrumentation. And so they knew the rising and the setting of stars. They knew how to read ocean currents, air currents. They knew the migratory patterns of birds and ocean life. And that's how they were able to steer and navigate these canoes to these islands that are separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. And so the navigator portion of Cosmic Navigator is a nod and an honoring to my Samoan ancestry, but also the bigger, wider community of people of the Pacific, or people of the Moana. And Moana is the word for ocean in several Polynesian languages. I believe it's like Hawaiian, Samoan. I think it's also in Maori. But I could be wrong on that one. But so there is this deep connection between all of these really beautiful cultures in the Pacific Island. So and then the cosmic part of the Cosmic Navigator title, it really just expands upon my love of astrology and incorporates my love of astronomy as well, like going farther out into and exploring the deeper cosmos.
And there's again, we talked last week for 2.5 hours. There were so many layers to all of this as you were explaining it to me. And so I'm sure we'll weave in other components, but this is a little random, but it feels important. It's like right present. Can you also talk a little bit about what you said last week was that we often, I think, in the more quote unquote Western logical mind, think of oceans as separation, like a separating factor. But do you want to?
Yes, I would love to. Yes. Yeah. So actually for a very long while in academia, it was believed that the peoples of the Moana, or people in Micronesia, Melanesian, Polynesia, all accidentally drifted to find the islands that they called home. So they didn't have any, knowledge of reading any of these really important nature signs. They just, academia just believed that we just happened upon these islands and then boom, we're home. Right. And that kind of lends its hand into viewing the ocean as this huge separation. So like having all of these, islands thousands of miles apart, could be seen as something that, like, the ocean is this thing that separates all of these islands that are actually very genuinely connected. And what they realized when, European explorers actually started to go in like ancient times, started to find these islands, they already noticed that there were people inhabiting them. And no matter how far it was like thousands of miles, they noticed there was a similarity in cultural practices. There was a similarity in languages. There was a similarity even in look and like actual physical makeup of these people. And so they realized that even though there was, thousands of miles of open ocean in between these islands, there was a deep connection between these people, which means that there had to have been knowledge on how to get to these islands. And so coming from, a Pacific Islander, but also just an Islander perspective, the ocean isn't the thing that separates us. It's actually a thing that connects us. And I really see and view the cosmos as that as well. So, there's even more distance between stars and cosmic points. I mean, we're talking light years. We're not just talking about thousands of miles. And, but I believe that the like seemingly empty space, these things that seems to like disconnect these stars and these, galactic points, what seems to be separating them is actually what's connecting them. So I see
Mm.
this wide open vastness of space is actually the thing that connects it all. So I see the
Oh,
cosmos is actually like a mycelium network, all relating together, just like how nature does here on Earth.
oh. Oh, it's just like so much. So good. Wow. Okay. I have chills and I have so many things moving through me. Like, ah! Wow. And another component that again is just arising. It's like I'm just like going straight for this, straight for the things that are here, even though this is something I thought we would maybe kind of work our way into, but it's right here. And
Yes.
I just want to bring it right in.
Yes.
Another really beautiful thing that we kind of came to last week when we were talking alone was this concept again of in terms of the ocean being a connector. We also talked about this concept that's been arising a lot in a lot of conversations, a lot of not political, spiritual,
Yes.
not political, spiritual circles, is this
Mhm.
whole concept of the quote unquote re-emergence of lands and like the re-emergence of mm, you could say like distant or disappeared um dimensions, right? So there's this whole idea that for example, when we're talking about that Polynesian area and Mu and that part of the globe, there's this whole concept that there might be a re-emergence of either a kind of dimensional experience of life or literal land re-emerging, or all these things are talked about, right? And you and I had a really beautiful kind of unexpected conversation about that, just one-on-one. So I'm not sure exactly what components you feel called to bring in here, but there's something feeling really important to literally allow to come to the surface with that. With I think the big theme that came through for me last week was this again, this concept of things really being us being held right now to come much more into a sense of unity and cohesion, right? And that actually things that we thought were separating us are actually what bring us together in a sense. I don't so you go.
Yeah.
What's arising?
Yeah. Yeah. So this unity piece that I think you're mentioning is so on point to what is so interesting in the collective when we see it right now, because it looks like kind of anything but united.
Yeah.
Especially in, well, I think that could just be around the globe. You can see just different pockets of just kind of disharmony. Um, but what we were mentioning was that, there is this, the myth that's kind of surrounding Avalon, that Avalon didn't, the kind of the mystical realm that exists in the Arthurian legends, that Avalon didn't actually fall; it just disappeared behind the mists. And when we're ready, it will reappear. And ready meaning like when we're actually ready to be, or we are matching in frequency with this particular energy around this realm. What I thought was really fascinating was that Keone Hanale also shared this kind of viewpoint around Mu or Lemuria. He really is like, just I love Keone. Hi, Keone. And he shares so much amazing knowledge about all kinds of things. And so what he shared about Mu was that it didn't fall, like kind of like the Atlantean times. It just kind of we fell out of frequency with it, similar to I feel like what happened with Avalon. And so it didn't fall, it just disappeared again, kind of behind the mists in a way. And when we're actually vibrating at that frequency, Mu will reappear again. And so reappear I feel like can have many different meanings, especially since we're in the mystery of it all right now. That could mean several different things. That could mean reemergence of actual land, or like a consciousness expansion or something like that. But I feel like like what you and I were talking about, there is this really big shift in consciousness that's happening with humanity right now. And we can see it in our actual lives, but I feel like we can really tap into the astrology and see that we're in that huge paradigm shifting energy right now. And I feel like what we're being invited into is this really big shift in how we perceive things and what we're connecting into. And so what has always been seen as like lore or imaginary or not real, or like, you know, those things don't exist, they only exist in myth, I feel like can actually start to reappear in people's consciousness in like a deeper way.
Exactly. Yeah. And I won't go on and on about it here because
Yeah.
anybody who watches my videos at all knows that this is a thing for me. But what I was also saying is that just fits so precisely, so uncannily precisely with what I've been getting told over and over and over again. And it's like louder and louder and louder that there's this infinite realms of benevolent beings, or, you know, infinite dimensions that are needed to come back online fully as the one, right? That we naturally, as the beings that we are, and all of life naturally has a way of being in communication, communion, community, all of that, with all other infinite realms. And that we've forgotten, that's one of the things that most of us have forgotten, is how to do that. And even that that's even a thing, and that's big time what we're needing to come back into. And actually, I think that this theme we're just talking about might even tie in perfectly with the Mercury, the about to be Mercury retrograde.
Yes.
Would you agree with
Yes.
that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to switch gears into that?
Yeah. We can definitely. Yeah, I would love to.
Unless there's something else you
No,
want
no,
to say.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So, like we were talking before we got on, we started recording this Mercury retrograde, like the downloads for this particular Mercury retrograde. I've been looking at this Mercury retrograde specifically since the end of last year because it's so cosmic in a way, because of not just the planets it's aspecting, that Mercury's aspecting, but the stars that's aspecting in tropical astrology really caught my attention. And I was like, oh, I need to pay attention to this. And so all kinds of stuff just started downloading today. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll just start writing things down. So we'll just start off with, I think, the actual dates of Mercury retrograde. I believe he stations retrograde on November 25th, and then he stations direct on December 15th. But again, just like you said, we're in the pre-retrograde shadow right now of Mercury's retrograde, so we're already in the energy of this Mercury container. And that started on November 7th, and then I believe once he stations direct, he doesn't exit out of his post-retrograde phase until January 3rd, 2025. So this Mercury retrograde is actually taking us into 2025, which is a huge astrological year, like massive. So the first things first, I'll just jump right in with the star that Mercury is actually stationing retrograde like next to, like
Yeah.
conjunct. Like,
Do you want me to bring up the chart?
yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah.
And yeah, so here is oops. Okay, there is Mercury
Yes,
right
there
now.
is Mercury. Yes. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, so as we were talking about before the recording, you know, Saturn's gonna be stationing direct at 12 degrees of Pisces this Friday on the same day as a full moon at 24 of Taurus. But so right now, Mercury happens to be squaring Saturn, etc. No, keep going. Go
Yes,
ahead.
yes. So Mercury is actually, because he's at 13 Sagittarius right now, I should just talk about this particular alignment he's going to be making. That actually was the catalyst for us connecting. When Mercury goes retrograde, he goes into what we were just talking about, the pre-retrograde phase, and then when he's actually retrograde, and then when he goes direct, and then he still has the post-retrograde phase to go through. And so during that time, Mercury can aspect planets and stars up to 3 times. And whenever I see Mercury aligning with certain planets 3 times or aligning with stars 3 times, that's like Mercury taking a cosmic highlighter to me and being like, pay attention to these things right here. So I'm not going to get more into the planetary aspects that Mercury is making. I'm just going to go more into like the stars and the galactic points that he's contacting during this Mercury retrograde. And so Mercury will be aligning with the Great Attractor 3 times.
Tomorrow.
And that's tomorrow, starting that'll be alignment number 1 of 3. And the so the Great Attractor is the huge galactic like anomaly that is the center to the Laniakea supercluster.
Which is what I'm contacting you originally about.
Yes. Yes. And the Laniakea supercluster is this massive amalgamation of galaxies. And what's kind of holding it all together, or at least like having these things rotate around it, like galaxies rotate around it, is the Great Attractor. And so the Great Attractor is a really fascinating piece to me because it is considered an anomaly in astronomy, which to me, it means it's a mystery. We don't exactly know what it is. Yeah. And so there is this theme with this Mercury retrograde, especially aspecting the Great Attractor 3 times, of relaxing into the mystery of life. So letting go and surrendering the need to feel like we have to have it all in control. We have to have it all figured out right now. We have to have like, you know, a plan, like plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of those things. So this Mercury retrograde is actually asking like, what would happen if we let go of all of those plan A, B, C, A through Z, and just really came into the present moment and just came into the body. So that's one theme that's coming through with Mercury aligning with the Great Attractor. The next piece, yeah, sorry.
People know the Great Attractor is at 14 Sagittarius.
Yes, 14 Sagittarius.
Which is very highlighted in both of our charts.
Yes, yes, as we come to find. Yes. And then also when I first came upon the Great Attractor, it was actually in a class that I was taking with one of my primary astrology teachers, Divine Harmony, who I know you've had on your channel before. And she had mentioned the Great Attractor, and then that put me into, I immediately had to go down into my own rabbit hole. The Great Attractor, and also the rest of the galactic points. But there was something so special about the Great Attractor that stood out to me too, because where the Great Attractor resides in our living sky, astronomers weren't able to actually see through to the Great Attractor. They noticed that we were being pulled or drawn towards something, but they weren't able to see what it was using, like, you know, typical astronomical equipment. And they named this part of the sky that they couldn't see through as the zone of avoidance. And I was like, oh my gosh, the symbolism is incredible with this. So whenever the Great Attractor gets activated, in my opinion, or actually whenever the Great Attractor gets activated by any planetary transit, the zone of avoidance automatically gets activated as well. And so there is this really big invitation with this particular Mercury retrograde to come face to face with the things that we have been avoiding. These can be conversations. This can be our own bodies. This can be, you know, those bills that we didn't pay for a really long time, or that like leak that's under the sink. Like these are like the things that this, like, it could seem so mundane, this thing that we have been avoiding. But the more that we avoid it, the kind of bigger and bigger and bigger it grows until we have to pay attention to it. And so this is an invitation for Mercury and the Great Attractor in the zone of avoidance. It's like, what if we actually face this thing head on that we've been avoiding? So, and not to the point where the universe is almost like forcing our hand to pay attention to it, but what if we just start facing it now? And there was this really beautiful symbolism as well with kind of how I've been working with my own zone of avoidance in a way. So the Great Attractor, again, is the center to the Laniakea supercluster. Laniakea in Hawaiian means immense or immeasurable or unobstructed heaven. And for me, I realized, I was like, wait, so if I actually stop running from these things I've been avoiding and start working through my own zone of avoidance, start like actually facing these things head on, start to heal these things, start to, you know, actually have a dialogue with these things, I actually find my way straight through my own zone of avoidance, and I find myself at the Great Attractor, which I find myself then at the heart of immeasurable heaven. So that's like a really big, it's almost like that was helping me face these really big things that I've been avoiding like for years. This whole year has been a very big initiation into working with things that I've been avoiding. And it was that symbolism of Laniakea and the Great Attractor, and like actually reaching the heart of immeasurable heaven, that kept me walking through those really uncomfortable moments of actually facing the things I've been avoiding. So Mercury is definitely activating that. And again, he's activating this, that zone of avoidance as well into the next year. And there is this piece too around, I actually saw a lot on social media around people actually saying like, oh, I'm disassociating now because there's too much stuff going on in the world, which is true. There is a whole lot of things happening in the world. But what if we actually came into our own bodies and disconnected from those external sources and actually went within? And I feel like Mercury's retrograde is a huge like exclamation point on going within.
Can I add in something with
Yes.
the actual sky? I know you're about to talk about
Yeah.
a bunch of other stuff with this, but I'm just having like this like moment.
Yes.
So can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So just again for people, so this area of the sky, the great attractor that Natasha's talking about, is considered at 14 Sagittarius, which is approximately here-ish. Or no, here-ish. So it's in, you could say like kind of in the Scorpion. It's in Sagittarius, the seasonal sign of Sagittarius, but it's in the sky, in the stars of the Scorpion. And I know you're about to talk about some other ways to see this part of the sky, but I also am just thinking about Antares and how Antares is technically a 10 Sagittarius, but that's pretty darn close to the great attractor, right? And that's the heart of the Scorpion. And you keep talking about the heart of this, right? So I'm like, And the Scorpion can feel very, very scary, but there's something so magical to me about Antares. And is there, anyway?
Yes.
What's there?
So we'll go actually into Antares because you just brought it into the space. So just to kind of keep it clear, so Mercury will be aligning with the great attractor 3 times. And also a really big thing to note that Mercury's cazimi, or when Mercury aligns with the sun when he's retrograde, which signifies the midpoint to Mercury's entire retrograde, that will be conjunct exactly the great attractor the 2nd time. So Mercury's cazimi will be amplifying the great attractor again. And I guess another way to describe the great attractor too is like this encompassing, mystery. So surrendering into the mystery of it all. But also I feel like every galactic center is tapped into deep cosmic truths. So like truth that's like undeniable, unquestionable. It just is what it is. And so there is this really big piece too coming through with Mercury aligning with the great attractor of no longer trying to make the truth into something that it's not. Like actually really facing the reality of things rather than trying to twist it or mold it into something that we want to see happen or things like that, where we actually get to work with what is occurring. Yeah. Okay. So now going to Mercury's next like kind of conjunction too is with Antares 3 times. So Antares is really special to me. Like personally, I really love this particular constellation and this star. So Scorpius or Scorpio. So Scorpius, the Scorpius constellation is connected to the Scorpio sign in astrology. And if you actually look at, just like you had brought up, the constellation of Scorpius, there is like, it almost looks like a hook. And so that hook part has been seen in like Western Western astrology and Western astronomy as kind of the stinger of the Scorpion. Yes, that part. So, but this is where the my lens toward, or my perspective of being drawn toward more of the Pacific Island cultures really starts to take hold. So Antares and Scorpius are really, really important in wayfinding or navigation in Pacific Island cultures. And it's because the Scorpius constellation is actually seen as Maui's fishhook in their view of the sky. And Maui's a figure that can be seen throughout the Pacific Islands. He's very important in Hawaii, in Maori culture, in New Zealand, and in Tongan culture. And so I'm going to actually focus on the the Tongan perspective that I heard given about this particular constellation. It was on a podcast. Trying to remember the name, the Tongan Legends podcast, and there was a guest on this particular episode named Dr. Tavita Kaili. And he is of Tongan descent. He's from Tonga, and he actually has lineage ancestry connected to Maui. And there's different Mauis in their culture, but in this particular Maui figure. And so this Maui figure that's deeply connected to Scorpius, or Maui's fishhook, is called Maui the land puller, or Maui the land riser. And so basically, yes.
Ties back to what we were just talking about. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, the reappearance of islands or land, things like that. So Dr. Kaili, he's a professor at BYU Hawaii, and he was sharing in this particular podcast that, so if you could imagine you're an ancient wayfarer on a canoe, and you're following this particular constellation, you're following Maui's fishhook. And so there is this legend that, Maui reaches his celestial hook down from the sky and then starts to raise islands from the depths of the sea. And so if you're following, this particular constellation and you're starting to come up on land from the ocean, it does look like land is coming out of the horizon. And so it could look like, if you're following Maui's fishhook, that this hook is going down into the depths of the ocean and pulling up land from the sea. And so I thought that when I first heard that, it just resonated in my bones, and I just had to immediately pause it and then write down everything that he just said and just sit with it, because it was incredible. And then also there is this really deep connection with Antares. The Hawaiian name for it, or one of the Hawaiian names for this particular star, is Lehua Kona. And Lehua, Lehua Kona is, its name was derived or honors the Ohia Lehua flower and tree that is a plant that is endemic to Hawaii. And I think the reason why it was named Lehua Kona is because the Lehua flower comes in a variety of different colors, but the one that really is like popularly photographed and drawn in like art and things like that is the red one. And so there is this bright red Lehua flower, and if you look at Antares in the actual sky, it glows red. And so I feel like that's why they named it that. And so there is this also this connection between the underworld and Maui's fishhook and Scorpius. So Scorpius and Scorpio are deeply connected to the underworld. They're the contemporary ruler is Pluto. So there is this navigating your own underworld whenever Scorpio's activated, which I see lends a hand to the Scorpius constellation. But what's really fascinating is Dr. Kaili in the Tongan Legends podcast had mentioned that the realm that Maui the land puller kind of governed over, or was really guarded or protected, was the realm of the underworld. So we have this other connection to the underworld as well, which I feel like is really pertinent, because he raises land out of the depths of the ocean. And so what I really saw as this was one of the downloads that came to me today, was this connection between Lehua, the Lehua Kona flower and Antares. And it's that the Ohia Lehua tree is the first plant life to come back to life after a lava flow happened. So this is the first plant that starts to take root. And so I really akin that to when you're going through your own personal underworld journey, and you're just say you're in your own personal lava fields, where it can feel desolate, it can feel dark, there's just kind of almost just blackness everywhere. But then when you come upon new life, there is the Ohia Lehua flower that's glowing bright red. That's reminding you that things are coming back to life, that things are turning around, that there is a rebirth happening. And so I feel like Antares, because its connection and its name is Lehua Kona, there is this piece of this Mercury retrograde to remind us that whatever underworld journey that we're on right now, and we can be on multiple underworld journeys, both within and also externally, that we are deeply supported in wherever we're at, even if we're, all we see is just lava fields for days. And then we can now see, there will be moments when we actually finally are able to connect in and see that Ohia Lehua flower.
And Antares is red in color.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I believe that it was named that. And I actually had this visual that came to me today too. So my mom and I took a trip to the Big Island last year, and we were on Kilauea. And if you've ever been there, it is just lava fields. Like you're just driving down the volcano, it's just like dark lava fields. I absolutely loved it. And then you start to see these pops of red from the Ohia Lehua flower. And I realized that if you're actually looking at Antares is this bright red star in like this vastness of black, just like the Ohia Lehua flower is like this red in this vastness of black of lava. And so there is this just deep connection to Scorpius and to Ohia Lehua, and to really trusting your own process of deep transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's Mercury aligning it with Antares 3 times. I believe the first time he aligned with Antares actually already happened. I think it was the 10th or the 11th, one of those two. So we're definitely already in the Maui's fishhook and Antares connection. And also to a really great source of information on Ohia Lehua and like the lore and the mystery and the like actual practical information of it is Keone. So like actually going to Keone's website, I believe it's pohala.net. He has an Ohia Lehua tincture, and he like lists some of the like what it represents and things like that. And so it's there's a lot of really amazing information on there. And there is this other piece too. So a couple of years ago, before I knew that Lehua Kona was Antares, Keone was sharing one of his amazing fern podcasts on his social media. And he had mentioned how Ohia Lehua is connected to a 20,000-year-old Mu Hawaiian prayer. And he said it in the Mu Hawaiian language, and then he translated it in English. And the English translation hit me right in the heart when he said it. And it has stayed with me for the last 2 years, ever since I saw that little bit that he shared on his social media. And the English translation is stay in the body and radiate. And so stay in the body and radiate. And so I feel like that is a huge piece of this Mercury retrograde too, aligning with Antares or aligning with Lehua Kona, because it again is bringing in this association with that Mu prayer that's like connected to the Ohia Lehua flower. And it's all about, again, if the zone of avoidance is getting activated, there can be this natural tendency or natural response to wanting to disassociate or to check out or to avoid in some big way. But with this Lehua Kona activation with Mercury, there is this invitation to, again, come back into the body, come present, and radiate. You can totally do that, even if it feels completely impossible. And so in the moment, but again, this is all a process. And so being really kind to yourself while we're going through these really big shifts is huge. But again, we have all of this celestial support that's coming in with this Mercury retrograde and Antares, and also the great attractor too.
Yeah, totally. I have 2 questions.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Was there anything else you were wanting to say? Okay, cool. So I want to come back to the Milky Way in a second.
Yes.
Before that, can you speak to something you and I were talking about last week that I just one of the many things I just loved so much. Can you give your perspective on quote unquote rulerships, or the not rulerships?
Yes. So what's really funny is I actually went back after our conversation, and when I had mentioned that the different perspective that specifically from this episode of this Moanan podcast that I was listening to, that was the guest that was on it was this man of Samoan heritage. And so he went really deep diving into his own culture. And I realized I found some old journals that I had been writing, like, astrological notes about when I first started to really get into astrology. And I realized that I was referring to the planets the same way that he was describing them in the podcast.
like naturally.
Naturally, that's what I was
Yeah.
calling it in my journals as well. So thank you for having that conversation with me too, because that like activated me to go find those journals and look for
So it's
them.
like your body already knew.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is a testament also to everyone's like ability to tap into their own ancestry. Not even if you don't actually know that you are. I feel like that's really coming on as well. People's lineage, ancestry, all coming on
Yeah.
and singing.
Well, and we are every single human on this
Yes.
planet is descended from people
Yep.
who were in direct
Yes.
relationship with stars. I mean, there's all over the world
Right.
that thing.
Right.
More and less in different times, but we all
Yes.
are descended from that is just Anyway,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yes. So on this particular, I'm going to reference podcasts a lot because that's one of my ways of uncovering information to deepen my connection in with my own ancestry. And this scholar named Sunny Natanielu was mentioning that the kind of the ancient way that Samoans would interact with the nature spirits, I guess, or would be that they didn't necessarily see it as like, gods of things. So like, there's like a god of the ocean or a god of the forest or a god of the fire or things like that, when really they saw it as guardians or protectors of the knowledge of whatever that thing was in nature. So
I love
yes,
that. Not only are they guard, it's not like it's a guardian of the ocean, it's the guardian of the knowledge of
knowledge of,
the ocean. It's like,
yes,
wow.
yes.
Yes. Okay, keep
And I
going.
think the example he used in the podcast was Tongaloa, who is naturally seen as like the god of the ocean, as like what he's kind of like referred to in some Polynesian cultures. Really, if we go back to the ancient way of looking at it, Tongaloa is the guardian of the knowledge of the ocean. And so when we approach our relationship with these spirits or with this guardian, it feels more personable to me rather than putting it up as a god. And so in those old journals that I had mentioned, I was actually writing like Venus guardian of Taurus or Venus guardian of Libra. I didn't have the knowledge part because the knowledge part gave me goosebumps when I heard it in the podcast, but it was like the guardian or protector of this particular sign and its information. Yeah.
But somehow also, even when you add in that knowledge of part, that again feels related to this Mercury retrograde because it's a Mercury
Mercury. Yeah.
knowledge of
Yes.
going through Sagittarius, knowledge of,
Right. And also
how,
Mercury's connection to knowledge. He's like the
mm,
sharer of
mm,
information and of knowledge. He just
mm,
shares it outward. Yeah. Yeah.
mm. Beautiful. Yeah. And so like on one level, just Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, if you're just going to be really stereotypical about it, certainly,
Right.
most astrologers would say something along the lines of, okay, this Mercury retrograde has to do with helping us reassess or come into a different relationship with how we know things or how we conceive of what our belief systems are, how we organize what we believe, something. I mean, so there's that one level, right?
Yep.
And then
Yep.
now
Yep.
what you're talking about is like so many richer,
Right.
deeper,
And
like,
but I feel like all of it has resonance. And I
yeah,
feel like
totally.
every single, piece of information that Mercury is sharing with us is relevant and resonant on some level. And it's not up to anybody else to tell you what resonates for you and what not. And I feel like, yeah, there's just so many amazing layers to any Mercury retrograde, actually. But this one in particular seems just really significant and really special because of these huge alignments he's making with these stars that are placed in like the tropical chart.
Yeah, totally. So is it okay if I bring in the
Yeah.
Milky Way idea?
Yes.
Or
And there
exist?
were a couple more stars too, but I think
Oh,
there is one that is deeply connected to the Milky Way too that we can bring in. But yeah, please bring in
yeah.
the Milky Way.
Sorry, it didn't bring
Yeah.
up the correct there. Hopefully now it'll work. Yeah, do you want to talk about those stars first?
Yeah. So Mercury will go will station direct conjunct a star. So he won't be aligning with the star 3 times, but he is like literally stationing direct, like just minutes off of an exact conjunction with this star. And
Right.
pardon my,
I-
yeah.
I'm just trying to share stellarium and it keeps not bringing up stellarium.
Which I think is funny. It's just like Mercury, that Mercury retrograde piece of tech. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hang on. Let me try this one more time.
Okay.
Okay, stellarium, do you want us to see you? Because we would really, okay. Hang on one second. I'm just gonna hang on.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully this is gonna work. Yes. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So Mercury will be again stationing direct on this particular star, meaning that it'll be like conjunct just minutes off. And that is, pardon my pronunciation because I never really figured out how to pronounce this particular star name, but it's Ras Al Heg, maybe. And it is considered the head of the Ophiuchus or Ophiuchus constellation. And yep, the right at the top there. That's a bright one. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes, Rosal Heg. Thank you. So Mercury is like stationing direct on that star. And I find this really big because even though it represents the head of Ophiuchus, what came to me when I envisioned this star was actually, it wasn't the head of Ophiuchus, it was the third eye of Ophiuchus.
Whoa.
That came really bright through. And so Ophiuchus is really fascinating constellation because it is the 13th constellation that resides on the zodiacal or on the ecliptic, but it's taken out of, traditional astrology. And there has been, like, I really believe that it does need to be included back into astrology in order to get like a really accurate, depiction of what is actually happening in the cosmos. But yes. But what's really fascinating is Ophiuchus is the serpent bearer, and serpents have a really deep connection to disclosure of truth or like disclosing all. And so Mercury aligning with, for me, the third eye, Rosal Heg, I keep pronouncing it, aligning with this particular star is activating everyone's third eye and really disclosing information, but in a really specific way because Mercury is going retrograde. He's not going direct on this particular star. He's going retrograde, which immediately is an invitation to go within, to start changing that, Mercury frequency of like him going direct in his orbit usually means like an outer expression of his energy. But when he goes retrograde, it's like this, I almost see it as like a spiraling down and in energy with Mercury. And so I feel like this is activating our ability to see truth in like a whole different way with this particular Mercury retrograde. But I also think it's fascinating that Rosal Heg is in Sagittarius in the tropical chart, but it's actually in Ophiuchus, which is taken out of the out of astrology. And so I feel like that is also connecting us into like seeing what's hidden in like a deeper way, because it's activating the star in tropical, but really this star is actually in a constellation that's taken out of astrology. And so I feel like Mercury, this is also an invitation to look deeper and like look below the surface of situations, circumstances, and things.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like all the mythology with Ophiuchus is just so amazing. The whole topic.
Yeah, a whole other topic. Like we could talk for days about Ophiuchus. Yeah. It's so fascinating. Yes. So that is, he will be on stationing again retrograde on that particular star, Rosal Heg, on November 25th, 2024. Yeah. And then finally, the last really big star that I was really looking at with Mercury aligning 3 times with is Rastaban. And Rastaban is the left eye of the Draco constellation. I kind of just say it's the left eye of the dragon because Draco is the dragon. And this is a really fascinating, yes, this is a really fascinating star as well. And also I've been looking at Mercury's retrogrades kind of together as a package. since the end of last year. So at the end of last year, Mercury's retrograde aligned 3 times with Eltanin, which was the right eye of Draco. And so this year, he's actually bringing his energy to the left eye of Draco. So that whole idea, again, because like the Rostbon and Eltanin being connected to the vision of the dragon, being activated 3 times, really, to me, I feel like, again, goes hand in hand with what we were talking about at the beginning, near the beginning of this interview, around like mythology or lore or things that only exist, you know, in the fairy tale realm, is going to start to become really, really alive for people. And I also feel like this is a restructuring in how we vision, like how we envision things and how we see things. I almost feel like it's a torch that's being passed to the divine feminine eye, because the left side is the divine feminine. So this is Rostbon, the left eye. And it's like a torch that's being kind of handed over from Mercury, taking the torch from Eltanin, and then Eltanin passing the torch to Rostbon. So there is this shift of perception, and the shift of how we see things is like also happening with this particular
and in conjunction with the third eye of Ophiuchus being activated.
Yes.
And just for people who don't know, Ophiuchus is Asclepius, who is the serpent bearer, but he's also the father of medicine, right? He's a mentee of Chiron. He's the father of Hygeia. Hygeia is a goddess of medicine. Hygeia is conjunct my ascendant and my moon.
Amazing. Yeah. Yes.
So Hygeia is humongous in my chart. But, but yeah, so Asclepius is a healer, and he was put in the stars because he brought people back from the dead with his medicine, and that was considered not good. And anyway, so there's this whole, I mean, I think it's really fascinating to sit with, just like feel that in my body, this idea of the healer of us, who is that serpent bearer, who's maybe ostracized because of this healing that we've done. Probably a lot of us have had past lives where we've been ostracized as healers. I mean, me, definitely, I would guess a lot of, you know, and then, but then we're getting our third eye activated. We're getting our right and left divine feminine, divine masculine eyes activated as we come back into these ways of knowing, these ways of being in our own Sagittarian perception of truth, an intuitive sense of truth. And those ways of knowing have maybe been really, really scary and had a lot of trauma associated with them, right? But maybe there's there's like so much I'm feeling as you're talking.
Yes. And and I love that you connected in with the third eye too, and then the 2 eyes of the dragon, and the fact that, you know, that Ophiuchus, is that serpent bearer, and Draco is a dragon, but I feel like it's deeply connected to serpents. Serpents and dragons have this innate connection. So all of the eyes are turning on. And I also wanted to mention too, there is this, so in order to get like deeper meanings for particular astrological alignments, I do work with oracle decks and tarot cards and things. And so there is this particular deck that I love. It's called the Energy Archaeology deck by Ashley Stinson. I'm no way affiliated with it. I just absolutely love this deck. And it's a oracle deck that it connects you into with the skeletal system. So I call it the bone deck. That's kind of what I refer to it as. And so each, she takes you through your skeletal system, and then like there's meanings behind, you know, each bone in your body. And so she has a card for the left orbital socket and the right orbital socket. And so when I saw Mercury aligning with both of the eyes of Draco, I immediately referred to that deck. So the left orbital socket, meaning Mercury could be seen as activating this particular energy when he aligns with Rostbon. So the left orbital socket in this particular deck is called Informing. And the quote is, "You are a powerful creator, but you live in a world that can both affirm and deny that power. Stretch into your expansion."
Wow.
So that was
exactly.
Right. And so that's also another theme, right? And I also think this goes hand in hand with Ophiuchus and being ostracized or even just taken out of astrology altogether. And so like that can both affirm and deny your own power. But you're really just that can happen. And also we're being invited to expand into our power with this particular Mercury retrograde as well.
Which also fits Sagittarius and yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Expansion, expanding. And also just to, another piece of Sagittarius too, like a more familiar understanding of it, because, Sagittarius is guardian of Sagittarius is Jupiter. And because Jupiter, is that the biggest planet in our solar system, sometimes the shadow of Sagittarius is to play small or hide our gifts or to retract. And so now we're really being invited to expand, to be seen, to share your gifts, to share what you know. Even if it feels like, oh no one's going to get it. I'll be like, is anybody else talking about this? I feel like I might be misunderstood. There is this really big invitation with this Mercury retrograde too, and also the astrology of 2025, and actually for the rest of this decade, is all just stretching into your expansion and sharing and what you know.
Yes. You and I both are probably feeling that personally quite strong.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So
amazing. Is it okay if we talk a little bit about the Milky Way?
Yes. Yes,
Was there
please.
any other components?
I think that was it. I think that was all of my notes. So yes.
Cool. Yeah, no, if there's something else, then just
yeah.
Just to come back to I just want to we talked a little bit about this last week. But I just want to feel into where did the Milky Way go? There it is. Yeah. So okay. So
Yes.
in general, the Milky Way has been calling to me so powerfully, right? And we're now in this part of the sky. I mean, as Venus right now is like right in the Milky
in it. Yeah.
right in the Milky Way.
Yeah.
So if anybody can't tell, this whole area is the Milky Way. This kind of shadowy area. So the Milky Way is, again, for anyone who doesn't know, it's our view of our own galaxy, and we see it from the side because we are positioned. Our solar system is on the edge of our galaxy. So when we look up and we see that band across our sky that is the Milky Way, that's actually our view of our galaxy. So yeah, so okay, so this whole area of the sky, I'm like, there is something clearly, right?
There's a
Like
force.
there's the Scorpius constellation, there's Ophiuchus, there's Sagittarius pointing its arrow straight into the Milky Way. Yeah, there's the Scorpius is protecting the Milky Way. That's what one I've heard it talked about, right? What goes on for you with the Milky Way?
So the Milky Way has always caught my fascination. I've even if I can't visually see it, I oriented myself to the stars that point it out in the sky. So for those that don't know, a great constellation that can help you orient to that Milky Way band is what's called the Summer Triangle. So that would be Deneb, Vega, and Altair. And not only is it triangulating the Milky Way, but that particular Summer's Triangle triangulates the Great Rift of the Milky Way, which is that darker band in the middle of all that bright stars, like if you can see it. And so there are cultures all over the world and in ancient cultures as well that really saw the Milky Way band as like a portal or an entry point or a doorway into the other world. Into like a lot of cultures actually see it like as a place that souls go to once someone has passed, their soul goes up to that Milky Way band and they go onto their next steps or their next soul journey or whatever they believe in. And for me it's similar to that too, but the astronomical piece of the Great Rift is that it's a star nursery. That's where new stars are being born. And so there is this really deep connection to birth of stars and also this completion point for humans as well to go to as like we're, when the souls are ready to go into the next phase. And so this is a really just deeply profound spiritual as well as astronomical piece to our own Milky Way. It's like a literal window into our galaxy that we can see from Earth. And if you go back actually to that like particular spot with Sagittarius, Ophiuchus, and Scorpius, or Maui's fishhook, you can see Maui's fishhook actually goes into the Great Rift too. And so there is this, again, this piece with that particular constellation of going into the depths, or going into an other world, or going into something like another dimension and drawing things up and out. So there is this piece with Maui's fishhook with that. And then also Ophiuchus, if you look at it in some astronomy apps, they have it look like Ophiuchus is actually walking out of the Milky Way, where it's like he's stepping out of it, like the Milky Way band. And
That is
Ophiuchus, also just a little fun fact, Ophiuchus is the only zodiacal constellation that is on the ecliptic, that's on the celestial equator, and that is in the Milky Way. All of the other ones, like Sagittarius and Antares, are on the ecliptic and in the Milky Way, but they're not on the celestial equator. So Ophiuchus takes up this really prominent part of the sky as well. And Mercury is aligning with that third eye of that constellation in tropical. So I feel like there's this activation of like hidden information surfacing and kind of like reclaiming some of that, like, you know, old ancient knowledge and wisdom that we've had for eons that kind of like collapsed, went into hiding, it was ignored or repressed, and things are starting to come up and out now. But I also feel like we're in a time where we can have it now. We're in a time that we can actually understand what that means, or at least start to begin to understand what that means. Yeah.
yes.
So yeah, the Milky Way has just always caught my fascination. And also I think in our discussion that it was in a meditation that I had at the beginning of last year on the spring equinox. I don't even remember exactly what the meditation was in the group that I was in, but the most vivid piece of, like, the most vivid visual that I got during that meditation was the Milky Way galaxy turned into the spine. So I saw I saw the you know, kind of the skeletal system of the human, just the bones, and then I saw the spine turn into the Milky Way. And then I immediately saw the band of the Milky Way as the spine of the Milky Way. And again, I'm going to reference Keone because he's doing this free Ulu course too. I believe you can still sign up as well on his website. And he shares that the spine in Niue Hawaiian is it's called the Iwi Kuamo'o, and it's where your Akashic records are stored. And so I was like, wait, then that would be like, then I felt like there was this Akashic records, you know, piece to the Milky Way as well, like the Akashic records for the entire galaxy. We can see, like, have this visual representation in the sky too, and connect with it through meditation or through however way you connect in with the cosmos.
Right. And in terms of on an astrology chart, I mean, of course, the Milky Way is so much more than just 1 degree of anything, but we think of the galactic center, which is part of the sky where we can kind of point to the center of our galaxy. That's considered 27 of Sagittarius.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
again,
it's
a hot spot. That's also a portal into, you know, the galactic center, which is the heart. Again, we're at another heart of the Milky Way.
Yeah. So that'd be right about kind of here-ish, right? And the Mercury retrograde won't quite get to that, correct?
No. So he did activate the galactic center 3 times last year when he activated the right eye of Draco. So he acted the galactic center, which is the heart of our Milky Way, as well as the right eye of the dragon last year. And now he's activating the great attractor, which is the heart of our entire galaxy cluster, and the left eye of the dragon.
Yeah, and actually, I can just real quick take us through this Mercury. So if people are watching, you can follow Mercury along the ecliptic here. So this is what it's going to do. So this is here, it starts to slow down. I'm going day by day.
Yes.
And then I think it's what, November 26th, you said, I think it goes retrograde. So you start to see it go, quote unquote, backward. Of course, in reality, it's not going backward.
Right.
But from our perspective, does.
Right.
And then here's when it starts to go behind, starts to be conjunct the sun. There it is,
Yep.
conjunct the sun. I think what is December
I think
5th?
December 5th. Yeah.
Yeah, 5th. And so that's right at
Yeah,
the
that's when the sun and Mercury both aligned with the great attractor, December 5th.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
14 Sagittarius.
Yes. I would mark that day with a highlighter and
Yeah.
just see what comes up for you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this aspects my chart like crazy. And yours too, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then Mercury keeps going quote unquote backward. Now it
Right.
goes past Antares again. Now it's in the claws of the scorpion. And then it comes up to the claws of the scorpion, and then now starts to go direct in mid-December. And then now it moves along past Ophiuchus and makes its way. Now we're getting into January of 2025.
Yes.
And here it then passes where it went retrograde, right? Now by January 9th, 10th, then it's in the Milky Way.
Yeah.
After it's done with its whole retrograde.
Yeah.
So it's like you could even say in some way, maybe I could feel how this Mercury retrograde comes before it then kind of like goes into the part of the Milky Way like that.
Yeah. And also a fun fact too, the comet that we can see in the sky is actually now because it became visible, I believe, in the Northern Hemisphere on October 14th, 2024. I think it's Comet A3. I don't know how to pronounce the whole name, but it's the one that like so many people on social media are taking pictures of right now that I've seen. And comets have an elliptical orbit, so not all comets enter in the same part of the sky, but this particular comet entered in right next to Ophiuchus. And now where it is, it's actually backtracking, like where it's at. It's actually not backtracking, but its orbit is taking it through the Milky Way band.
Wow.
Yes.
Beautiful. So this whole area of the sky is just being
activated.
Crazy. I mean, of course, you have the sun. It's going to be going through there at the same time.
Right.
We have Venus is going through there. You know. Wow, wow, wow.
Yes.
Amazing. Beautiful. There's so much there.
So much. Yes.
Well, any other thing you feel called to say? I'll ask you one other quick question, but
I don't think so. I think that was all of the really. Oh, I did look up for so I had mentioned that energy archaeology, the left orbital socket meaning, and because Mercury did activate the right eye of Draco last year, I do have the card for the right orbital socket, which I feel like even though that Mercury retrograde obviously ended at the end of last year, I feel like Mercury's retrogrades are all interconnected this year. And that was also another big piece that Mercury is activating both eyes of Draco the dragon during the year of the dragon. And then next year, and then also with all of the Ophiuchus energy, and also Mercury aligned with Alphard, which is 3 times during his last retrograde, his like one in, I think it was August, aligned 3 times with the heart of the female water serpent.
Oh, wow.
So he's connected all of this dragon serpent energy this whole year. And then next year is a serpent year or a snake year, the year of the snake in Chinese astrology. So all of this is all kind of coalescing at the same time. It's really wild. And so Mercury, there is this Mercury piece too, where, he's the god of, he's the messenger god. So he's taking, he's delivering messages to the gods, but he's also delivering messages to us as well. But there is this other piece of Mercury that I see where he is weaving all of this information together. And he's also mythologically the psychopomp, where he, guides souls into their next journey. And I really feel like Mercury, with all of this activation with serpents and dragons and things, he is actually resurrecting and restoring the dragon energy. and serpent energy during the year of the dragon and during the year of the serpent. But the energy that Mercury was activating with Eltonin at the end of last year 3 times, which again is the right eye of Draco. The card in the Energy Archaeology deck by Ashley Stinson, the right orbital socket means visioning. And the quote that she gives is, "You are the one who creates and stewards the vision for your life. Allow yourself to be guided by what others cannot see."
Mm. Mm. Again.
Right? And I feel like that's relevant now, especially since we're activating both eyes of the dragon. So even though they're, you know, months and months and months apart, it's all actually getting activated simultaneously. That's if that makes sense. Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah. Wow. So good. I can feel it in my body. Yeah. So okay, here's my question. It's a big question, but answer it however you want.
Okay.
Or not answer it, or whatever. Okay, this is something I've been sitting with a lot. So as we are coming into these, remembering these, you could say, ancient ways of being and knowing, and allowing these dimensions to come back into our perception and experience and all of that, you know, something I really, really sit with a lot is that in a lot of the common ways of doing astrology, it's so focused on Greek and Roman mythology, etc., which I don't have a problem with, but and I really feel a deep calling to personally drop back a little and allow, you know, other traditions other than that one to come to the foreground, right? And yeah, I really personally am wanting to learn from those traditions and to hear it, to be it, to remember it, each in our own ways. But it feels really important, like really crucial, that we incorporate what you just shared, right? Those kinds of things. What are your thoughts? Like, what would be your wish or prayer or hope or intention or vision of astrology, you know, of how we hold space for the cosmos as a collective of people interested in this?
That's such a good question. So my hope or my prayer of you know, astrology's evolution would be that for me, a profound connection that I made with the living sky. And that's actually how I started to see astrology just shift for me on the chart, because it can be very one-dimensional when you're looking at a chart because it's on a piece of paper, right? But then it started to come to life for me when I started to incorporate what I was actually observing in the night sky. So go be your own observer of the night sky and create your own relationship with what you're seeing, what's coming up for you, what you're noticing. And I feel like when we actually start to connect in with the sky that way, that is actually connecting us in with our ancient ancestors, knowledge keepers from the past. And it doesn't matter how far back you have to go in your own DNA line in order to find, you know, those wisdom keepers. That's actually bringing them present when you go and connect in with the living sky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And relating to that, I was actually with some people today, and this question came up. I had my own answer, but I would love to hear your answer. My very last question here.
Yes.
What would be your suggestion if someone asked you, how do I do that?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So so the way that I started doing it was what really helped me go outside and like actually orient to the sky are astronomy apps. Like the technology has shifted so much now that we can actually go outside and we don't have to have, you know, the ancient knowledge like be passed down through mystery schools and things like that, which is one beautiful way to do it back in ancient times, to like know, you know, the different, you know, stars and the different myths and things like that. But information is shared in such a bigger way now, and the technology is really like fast and rapid in its evolution. And so astronomy apps are actually the first thing that helped me connect in with the living sky, because I was able to go just put my phone and point it up at the sky and say, what is that star that I'm looking at right now? And from there, I actually started to, that branched me off into getting astronomy books. So actually going in and having like books that tell me what constellations in which part of the sky at night. So like going in and doing my own research on that. And then I actually started kind of quizzing myself in a way too, where I would go outside, not using my astronomy app, and start pointing at the stars that I do actually memorize. So I'm starting to memorize and orient myself to the living sky through astronomy apps, and then also through books, and then through podcasts and things. And then when you actually start to gain more information about the different myths and mythology about the different stars and from different cultures, it starts to make the stars come to life, in my opinion, because I was able to be like, oh, well, that star is associated with that and that culture, and it means that and this and this and this. So yeah, it's a very big rabbit hole.
And for me, it's also so important. I think it sounds like this is part of what you do too, that it's even, I mean, like, yes, all the knowledge is great. And also just to be under the sky or in the night air. And I go, oh, that is talking to me. What is that? Right. And then I put up my phone like on Stellarium. That's whatever it is.
That's the star. Yeah.
Yeah. And okay. And then I just sit, I just, close my eyes or look at it or whatever. I just feel into my own being. What is it saying? Or what is the energy? What's the quality of the light vibration even coming into my being?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's like a logical something that comes into my brain, but most of the time actually it's not. And it sort of, it's like it imprints me on a light body level. And then later I'll sort of take it. This is me, right? I don't think this should be how everyone does it, but then later often I will go, oh, okay, that was Sirius. That was the light of Sirius, maybe.
Yeah.
That was the star Sirius.
Yes.
And I can remember the feeling of that light imprint in my being. And then again, this is my way. Then I can channel that light energy because I've like it's imprinted.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular way that it works for you?
Yeah. So actually it's that combination between going outside and learning the stars and then going and looking at the astrological chart. And I know tropical astrology because I do work with tropical astrology. I do know it's not exactly aligned with the sky. I understand that. But I also know that there's deep relevance in that information though that tropical does hold, and branching out into looking at Vedic or what where it is in true sky astrology too is really fascinating. So that's kind of how I've been developing my relationships with the stars, is by direct observation and learning where they're from, like where they're at, and then possibly doing deep dives on like certain myths and things about where there's what the stars are named after, and then going and seeing where they're at in the chart to see like oh, it lines with that particular planet in my chart. What does that mean? And then getting downloads about what that means for me and how that's manifested in my own life, of how this star energy with this particular planet in this house or whatever has activated in a really personal way in my actual life. So that's how I kind of work with it. And then also definitely meditations and stuff too coming through as well. And then also if there's classes that are being offered, they don't even have to be astrology classes. They can be like Keone hosts like star lineage classes about like the star lineages of Mu. That was very helpful of orienting to the sky for me. Also, Divine Harmony has a Stargate Mystery School. That completely awakened my interest and reigniting what I already felt like I had in me that had that connection to the stars. But that particular class that she hosts, I think you can actually purchase it on her website still, was so deeply helpful in like kind of taking the kind of mainstream ideas of what stars mean, because there's a lot of doom and gloom that I've noticed in when you look up star meanings online. And her class helped to orient me into the ancient myths about these particular stars, but then it helped me orient my own relationship with these stars to able to like really inspire me to develop a relationship with these stars and what they mean.
Beautiful. Yeah. I second all of that. I would also add in Kaylin Castell. I don't know if you're familiar with her,
Oh,
but she,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
love her star. I personally
Mm-hmm.
have taken her star courses, and I'm going to be teaching a star course starting next April. And
Yay.
Kaylin and Divine Harmony were both going to be speakers in that
Oh my
course.
goodness. Amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
Julie
Sign me
Plaza.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, no. And you will be teaching your own courses, I'm sure, someday. Probably writing a book. That's my
Yes.
guess. No, for real. For real. Yeah, yeah. And also I love just my local natural history museum has these free every
Mm-hmm.
once a month has
Mm-hmm.
free star gazing
Amazing.
sessions. Like just like with
Incredible.
yeah, it's like what? So
Yeah, and it's even like it's really surprising. It's actually in the kind of star classes or things that doesn't necessarily seem like, oh, yeah, that's a really cool thing that would like spark a whole, inspirational thing where we're now tapping into the stars in a really deep way. I would even suggest going to like a planetarium
yeah,
too,
exactly.
and like going in and watching shows there too, because that could also be very activating as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I really feel like this deep connection that humans have always had with the night sky, but then kind of fell away, is now being reactivated with this Age of Aquarius piece that's kind of coming in too. Because again, the guardian of Aquarius and the contemporary guardian of Aquarius is Uranus, who is, I believe is that the Roman version of the god of the sky? Or something like that. So there is this sky god energy that's coming in through the Aquarian lens.
Totally.
And so I feel like it seems to me at least that there is this deepening connection with astrology. Now it's coming more out of the fringes and more into the mainstream. And then also I feel like that's going to lead the way to now connect in with the sky in a whole new way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll just say this really, really fast.
Yes.
That actually the star course I'm doing in April it's all channeled. So it's all told to me. And what I'm shown is that the this relates to the very first topic we were discussing, the very beginning of this video, is that I'm shown the earth. No, I'm shown the sun. That's what it is. I'm shown the sun. I think you and I talked about this actually.
Mm.
I'm shown the sun, and around us we are part of, we're part of this our sun's star system, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And there's this council of stars in a circle around our own star sun.
mm-hmm,
And that there's this infinite family of this the all of this the community of stars that is needing to come back online again, like click back into this totality of this realm of infinite benevolent beings, right? And the
mm-hmm.
stars being part of that,
Yeah.
that we've again forgotten this natural way of communicating, being one
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
we are literally part of the community of stars. We just
Right.
are.
Yes.
It's like scientifically true.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something so the way that this course that I'm holding like a channeled convening of this council of stars, basically.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
like, oh my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really, really important. It feels so related to what you're describing about us coming back out of, these lands re-emerging, like
Mm-hmm.
um and
Yeah.
the dimensions coming back into
Yeah.
us, or us coming back maybe into resonance with
Yes.
dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's actually lending its hand into the Pluto-Mars opposition that we're experiencing, because Mars is about to go retrograde as well. So he's doing his little dance with, making aspects 3 times with different planets. And the one in particular that I was noticing was Mars opposing Pluto. And the first time they opposed each other was at the 29th degree of Capricorn and Cancer. I believe Mars was at 29 Cancer and Pluto's at 29 Capricorn. And but then the other two oppositions, they'll be in Leo and Aquarius. So they won't go back to that 29th degree. And so what I was reading with that, because what was coming up in my own life with that particular activation, I believe that happened on November 3rd, that Mars
Mhm.
Pluto opposition at 29 Capricorn and Cancer. Those are the two signs that are deeply connected to lineage, to the past, to the ancients, to DNA. And so Mars, this activating planet with Pluto, which is planet of power and like planet of the underworld and things like that. These two, and also the planet of will and like, you know, your personal will and divine will. I feel like they're coming together and activating everyone's like lineage and DNA and knowledge that's clicking on. And that can come in like, you know, at different volumes for different people. But I thought it was really interesting that it activated at the 29th degree of like, you know, the past of like your ancestry of the, you know, ancestors. But then the other two oppositions are in Leo and Aquarius. Aquarius being future, progress, what's new. And Leo's like your individual creative spark, correct? And so I felt like it's like this activation of the old, of like your ancient ways of being and knowing and doing. But now it's like, how do we make this information relevant to today? How do we make this like we're able to relate to it now? So there's this new there's like this activation of the old coming up, but also new ways in interpreting it so that we can actually make it functional and we can make it relevant to where we're at today.
Wow. Okay, so wait, remind me, what
Yes.
day does Mercury go retrograde again?
Mercury goes retrograde on November 25th, 2024.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And
so
then Mars goes retrograde, I think, in December.
December 6th or something.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so Pluto is going to enter Aquarius while Mercury is currently doing its first pass through the retrograde shadow, right? It won't be retrograde yet, but it's going to pass, it's going to be making its first pass.
Yes.
Like it is right now.
Yeah.
While Pluto enters Aquarius, then it'll do its retrograde deal.
Yes.
And okay. Yeah. So the Mercury retrograde, you could say, in a sense, is part of what's holding space as Pluto does this
dance
entry.
and going into a big shift. And yeah, all of this is so fascinating. And I feel like all of this that's happening now is a really big doorway into 2025. Like this is like just clearing the path for what is coming in 2025 and 2026.
Wow. It's amazing. Okay. This is how we ended up talking for 2.5 hours.
I know. Right.
So many things. Wow. Okay. Well,
yes.
How can people, I'm going to put your contact information here, but what would you like to invite people into? How can they connect with you? What are you?
Yes. So I have a website. My website is natashakastrology.com. And from there, I have a list of services. So I do personal one-on-one readings. And I also have a free newsletter that I've taken a little bit of a break from writing so that I can really regroup and like really tap into what I do want to write about. And that's coming online in 2025. And so there is a link on my website to sign up for my free astrology newsletter. And and the way to contact me is also on that main website. So it's all kind of condensed into one main website. And then also I do I co-teach classes. I forgot to mention this in our interview or our discussion when we first met. I do co-teach classes with my mom. So my mom, Yvonne Donaldson, she considers herself a spiritual teacher, healer, and guide. So she's always just, ever since I was a child, just encouraged me to listen to my intuition and do these things. But of course, I'm like, that's not cool. It's weird. Like when I was little, right? And so then I just think it's funny that I ended up now.
My kids are like,
right. And so my mom and I co-teach a class called Navigating Now, where I tap into whatever big astrological alignment of the moment is like calling to me. And then my mom leads us through guided meditations and like being able to connect in on a deeper level with the more heady astrology information that I'm sharing. And so we've been doing that in just small groups in person, but we're in the new year, we are planning on actually doing it on Zoom. So we can actually, reach our wider community. So I will be posting whenever we're going to be doing that, I'll post it on my newsletter. Yeah.
Beautiful. That is super exciting. Definitely let me know when you're doing that.
Yes.
Know about it.
Well, that's
yay. Well, Yeah, and I definitely would love to continue having conversations because this is
Yes.
awesome.
That was so much fun. Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and for everybody watching, if there are questions or things you would love to hear more about or whatever, just let us know. And we would love your thoughts, of course, and your wisdom. I'm sure this is stoking lots of fires in people's soul and being because it's
Mm.
so, yeah, there's just so much here. Any last thing?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again so much for inviting me, and thanks to Keone for connecting us. And yeah, and I may this, whatever we share today just be a support in whatever people are experiencing and going through currently.
I second that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
And I will say, I think, isn't Keone's free class starting this weekend?
Oh, his Ulu class?
Yeah.
It's already started.
Oh, it
So I
already
think
started.
that the
Oh,
first two classes have already
hmm,
happened, but you
okay.
can still sign up, I believe, on his website.
Okay.
And he's
Okay.
dropping a lot of really good stuff as always on
Yeah.
his in that class. Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you
Thank you.
so much. I
Thank you so much.
Yes. So happy we connected, and I really look forward to more.
Me too, me too.
Thank you.
Mhm.